Sad as it is, it stepped into the remnants of a dream that had long since seen no visitors. There was no wind this night, nor a soul to be seen except for Chiro and then there's narrator. So it heard the echoes from within, clasped its hands together, and grind. Its form, with hands clasped, resembled that of a budding tulip. The bearing of this artificial flower reflected in the cloudy mirror of the ticket attendant's office next to the gate. Next to it stood a display board, corroded by years upon years of rust. No visitors today. True. Oh wait, number of visitors. Oops. Number of visitors today. The board had graffiti crudely scrawled atop one of the words. It was replaced with dates. The records board had long ago fallen to disrepair. After taking a full 10 seconds to digest what it was looking at, it made its own revision. Number of visitors today. Three. I want to dance today. One. Holy fuck. After pinning this number with an index finger, she smiled like a flower. Don't do that. Then she began to walk towards the source of the sound. Don't do that, Chiu. It had been 10 minutes since this rhapsody had begun to echo from the House of Mirrors. The amusement park's entrance returned to it as it was before. So was. In the end, I had to let one cat go. Even if Soujuurou had been the luckiest man alive, there was no way he should have been able to escape. The question, however, was how much of this was by design, and how much was sheer coincidence. Even Aoko, who had made all the arrangements, had no answer. Indeed, there was only 3 things she could say. It was taking longer than expected. He was putting up more of a resistance than she had anticipated. And that choosing the House of Mirrors was a mistake. She had really screwed the botch on this one. Booch. Ugh. Maybe. The location itself was an excellent choice, but the House of Mirrors was perfect as a hunting ground. But seeing her own incompetence reflected in the mirrors was beginning to grate on her. What? What? Oh, didn't choose the game. Oops.
Ah!
Lemon Dawkins' right arm begins to glow. Soujuurou made a beeline for the staircase in front of him. A stabbing series of blue flashes lit the room behind him. The hunter calmly followed her prey, and the prey desperately ran for his life up the stairs.
注文通り。そうでなくっちゃお膳立てした甲斐がない。
In sad contrast to Soujuurou's frenzied escape, Aoko walked briskly up the stairs. She elected not to run after her prey in order to maintain a set distance. As she let coincidence in her accuracy, confidence, the hardest thing for her to deal with would be if he charged right at her and went down fighting. She... Yeah. Yeah. But at a distance of 30 or so feet, he posed no threat. She's upset that her big buddy has went away for a little bit. But by the time her prey, in case the meowing sound has been picked up, OBS. By the time her prey drew near, she could fire 10 shots and hit with at least 4 of them. Their positioning just a moment ago hadn't been ideal. At the distance, in a space that opened, if he planked and rushed her, there was a chance, however small, that it could turn into a fistfight. Carefully, Aoko's best weapon was the bullets from her right arm. If she was going to capitalize on that advantage, it was in her best interest not to close the gap between them. If there was a good time to approach, it was only after her prey had become exhausted and had lost the will to continue. Unfortunately, though, would she pierce his leg? Shoot him in the back? Or perhaps, would he just give up after losing himself in the labyrinth? The hand would then, when her target sustained some sort of injury and became unable to run. On Soujuurou's hand, he could barely bite back and screaming as he bolted through the maze. Even running in a straight line had become difficult, much less searching for an exit. The corridor stretched out far before him, or so the mirrors blocking the path had made it seem. Panicked, he made a turn to the right. Let's try left. Catching his head in his right arm, Soujuurou led with his left, groping through the air to see whatever a wall was there or not. That's not a wall. He dove down the hall to the left, narrowly dodging the bullets, targeting his life. Urged on by the sound of approaching footsteps, he ran without thinking. Last one was close. Had closer, it would have bent his life. He cut the odor of burnt hair from the back of his neck. He was very lucky. Or perhaps very unlucky. If he were actually lucky, he would not be in this situation in the first place. The second floor of the House of Mirrors was structured like a giant spiral. It wound left, starting from the outside wall. Eventually, it would lead to a dead end. The more he tried to escape, the more cornered he would become, as though he were trapped in a twisted guillotine. His stiff screams threatened to leak out his complaints. No matter what he did, he was going to be killed. All of his struggling merely served to prolong the inevitable. Yet he ran. No matter how many mirrored walls he rammed himself into, he ran. Even after crashing so hard that his forehead bled and he saw stars, he ran. Aim shot through him at every turn. The more frantically he ran, the more intensely he smashed into the invisible walls. His body began to understand this rule and begged him not to run anymore. His breath was already ragged at sprinting a couple hundred feet. No matter how he thought about it, this was not normal. This was way too crazy. This was all just a bad joke. If it turned out now, she would apologize to him for taking it too far. His mind had gone blank. As his body continued to slam into the mirrors again and again, his feet slowed as he began to believe that perhaps it really was all a joke. But then... nope. It felt like chill. A touch of death upon his neck. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Soujuurou knew this kind of terrible chill far too well. Ever since he had arrived in the city, he had come face to face with more than one or two near-death experiences. For someone who did not understand city life, his present predicament was not unlike when he experienced the traffic of the streets or the commuter rush at the station platform. He was far from an innocent babe unable to comprehend life or fear. Rather, everything he had ever known became irrelevant when he was flying into a completely different cultural sphere. Even society's promises of safety, something urbanites took for granted, were threats unknown. So he was used to this already. Though if he were to be honest, he was dissatisfied with some things. Things superfluous to necessity. This world was overflowing with valueless things, and they were all dangerous in some way. Even the everyday necessities sold at the convenience store were, as far as he was concerned, amazing tools. Civilization had raised the standard of living so high that it had numbed humanity's sense of danger. That city's constant pursuit of wealth and convenience was a poison to a country boy like Soujuurou. And he did not have the capacity to accept these conveniences. That it was possible for such conveniences to easily and subtly be misused and caused unintended accidents that always made him anxious. Why? He had to wonder why he was even here. How ironic. It took the real threat of death to finally make him realize. Like a divine revelation. What he do fail to understand until now. He do always have to expect the unexpected. Near-death experiences were more common than one might think. To begin with, safety was something that came at a price. Being alive meant that the opposite was always looking around the corner. It was just like a street light at night. When the sun rose, its illumination would naturally disappear. Another barrage of strange projectiles whizzed mercilessly by him. Oh hi. He recalled in the back of his mind the charred remains of someone at the hands of that blue flame 2 nights prior. Somehow this situation reminded him of a horse being led by a dangling carrot. For now, he lifted his head and continued to run through the labyrinth. But for what purpose? Though he knew the pain in his chest was very real, he felt disconnected from it. The night sky visible through the skylight was a muddy ultramarine, no longer resembling the one he knew. I managed to calm himself. Soujuurou began to laugh in despair, as though something rather precious had been broken. Everything had become meaningless anyway. You might as well just have, I guess, and just try to talk things out with her again. And die, probably. Even so, his legs somehow made their way forward at the sight of her reflection in the mirror. Oh! She's still a motivator for us to keep on running then. Thank you! One more squisher like crazy. Like a game of cat and mouse, Soujuurou fled through the labyrinth of mirrors. Then, after 4 minutes, that strangely unreal tension ended. The 9th shot of blue light hits inches away from him. It exploded the moment it made impact, launching Soujuurou into the opposite wall. Of all the fire he had taken thus far, this shot indisputably brought him the closest to death. Groaning, he collapsed to the floor. His back was on fire with pain. He was not bleeding, and it was lucky he could still even scream. Yet his body refused to move. Physically and mentally, he still had something to spare. The pain was not so bad that it was preventing him to stand up. It was just that there was a skylight above him, and he could glimpse the dark of the night sky beyond. The feeling that overcame him was raw, selfish, the bout of grief. It was just so cruel to have to stare at that for the remainder of whatever short life he had left. Soujurou's back breath slowed. For all intents and purposes, he had given up. He had given up running away from the sound of pursuing footsteps, and perhaps even the problem at the root of everything.
まあ、青崎に殺されるならいいかな。
Yay! Death at the pretty girl's hands. Soujuurou Shizuki felt things that in any other circumstance he would never feel. Incidentally, without exaggeration or embellishment, this was the only mistake he had ever made in his entire life. Staring wickedly into the night sky above, Soujuurou listened as the footsteps drew nearer.
ギブアップ
It was the closest her voice had ever been to him. Not close enough, I need you to whisper it into my ear. Perhaps feeling that he really had given up, she approached his collapsed form. In the dark, mirror-lined corridor, he could not make out her expression. Without a word, Soujuurou raised his eyes to meet his murderer.
返事がないならそれでいいけど。調子狂うわ。普通どうして殺そうとするのかぐらい聞くものじゃない？
Aoko spoke, well, at least he started running out of fear of you. Aoko spoke from within the shadows. Now let's think about it. You make a good point. His eyes widened in bewilderment. Now that she had mentioned it, he realized it would have been the obvious question to ask. He had more or less picked up on the fact that he was being killed for learning some secret. But it was human nature to want to know more.
そっか。それはそうなるな。
A simple affirmation. His face was a mixture of resignation and a forlorn longing. He thought for a moment before.
でも言う必要はない。聞きたくないんだ。そういうのは。
He responded in a mature, subdued voice. Now. Here comes our Satan. In disguise. His response was clear, or rather gallantly so.
そう。じゃ、殺すけど。死ぬの怖くないの？
How many questions are you going to keep on asking me? Just kill me already!
怖いに決まってる。何より痛そうだ。
His face turned dry as he objected, to which Aoko frowned. As nonchalant as he could be, he was honest about his feelings.
そりゃ怖いでしょ。私だって怖いと思うし。でも悪いわね。我慢して。人でなしと罵ってくれて結構よ。今の私は本当にその通りだから。そういった意味じゃあんたと同じ。普通の道徳がないのよ。だから必要なら人も殺せる。
Soujurou's finger twitched in response to her indifferent tone. As if to say that, despite having given up on just about everything, his body could not let those words slide.
人殺しなんて良くないぞ。
分かってるって言ってるでしょ。
Aoko raised her right hand. The light from the crest illuminated her face. It goes without saying that her expression wasn't changed. She was not crying, nor was she smiling. She was a young woman who had excised her feelings. Deal with it was another thing Soujuurou could not let slide. Soujuurou could read on Aoko's face that she was not herself. She was in pain, and to a degree he had never seen in her.
すまない。ちょっといいかな。
何？ここまで悲壮感を盛り上げておいて やっぱり逃げるなんてのは却下よ。
Damn it. He unconsciously smiled at Aoka's ruthless counter and breathed a sigh of relief. He had misread the pain he saw in her face. This was the same Aoka. Sojourou laughed out loud in genuine joy. A laugh that most other people would have taken as an insult.
遺言でも聞いてあげようと思った私が甘かった。っていうか、今の小バカにした笑いがあんたの遺言ってことで OK？
いや、そうじゃなくて、あそこにいる人は青崎の友人なのか？
Yeah. I don't know where Sojourou pointed behind Aoka.
はあ？
Aoka thought that it must have been that old overused distraction technique. If this had been a Japanese comedy act, this would be the part where she gave him a whack with a paper fan. But after giving it a second thought, she realized Sojourou didn't have the capacity for understanding old or even new tricks.
あんた何言って。
Perhaps his honest disposition had been to his benefit. Without thinking, Aoko gave in to her curiosity and turned her gaze towards the direction in which his finger was pointing. And there, boy, something that should not have been there in the maze. Something with a creaking look, then smile. It was the ominous, creepy, uncanny figure of a girl. Hi. But I'm already interested in Aoko, thank you. I mean, this boy is... Yep, an unusual figure with 2 arms and 2 legs stood silently in the darkness. It fell for a moment, his beauty, which was even apparent from afar, dulled the insanity of the current situation. That's me, extend. The early unknown threat made Aoko freeze at the spot. Didn't even occur to her. Humans possess intelligence and knowledge. But when confronted with the unknown, they fail to process what to do and... A shriek escaped Aoko's mouth. The magical attack crossed a 30-foot gap in an instant. The arm of the girl who had appeared at the rear of the corridor was slender and quick. It extended to a near impossible length, striking Aoko from behind. Aoko crashed into the wall as she fought back an anguished whimper. The attacker retracted her arm.
Aozaki!
Sojourou sprang to his feet. He darted to her side and used all the strength he could muster to get her to her feet. He could not believe how light she was. In Sojurou's mind, Aoko was an extraordinary individual. He do expect that if he were to ever touch her, it would be apparent she was far stronger than he. In the reality, she felt about as heavy as you could expect a 100-pound girl to feel. Meanwhile, that thing continued to reel in its arm, as if it were some sort of mechanism. Having extended more than 30 feet from the elbow joint, it clanked as it returned to its previous shape and size.
大丈夫か？
やめてよ。わからないわ。なんでそんな顔できるの？
Aoko tore her head away from Sojurou's. Suddenly, she felt her knees buckle from under her, but Sojourou caught her before she could hit the ground and helped her to her feet.
無理するな。で、あいつは知り合いか？
He looked back at that eerie shadow 30 feet away as it finished retracting its arm.
そうね。似たようなやつとは命をせめぎ合った仲よ。
Aoko grabbed her lower back as she answered. A stinging pain shot through her.
痛いっちゃ痛いけど打撲だけ。あれだけ絶好の奇襲をしておいて、それともこの距離じゃ当たっても致命傷にならないなんてあるわけないか。何か別の意味があると見るべきね。
Aoko tried to steady her breathing as she assessed damage onto her back. The beam was quick to fade and her breathing returned to normal. For the time being, her motor functions were no longer hindered, which meant the real damage was elsewhere. Don't look at me like
青
that.
崎あれ。
分かってるわ、黙ってて。
Blue light glowed across the gloom. The magical energy generated by her breathing was accumulating in her right arm. The magical energy was the fuel, the formula was the igniter. For Aoko, this was little more than a reenactment of 2 evenings ago. Next time the puppet extended his arm, Aoko would fire a magic bullet as fast as she could. About approximately 30 feet. As long as Aoko could secure a 2-second window, she could create a counterattack to end their duel. It made its move. With its head tilted down, there was no expression to be seen. And in the darkness, its apparent age was impossible to make out. To the 2 humans, the puppet was not dissimilar to a faceless ghost. Its left arm slowly came up with a grinding sound. Its movements were dull, as if the joints were rusty. The right arm, which had been extended earlier, hung at its side. Though the puppet's mouth was hidden by its long locks, the sense was that it was smiling.
さっきと用途が違う。あれが本命。しずきくん、どいて。
She threw herself into Soujuurou and extended her hand. Its arm extended at that very moment. The timing was impeccable. In a single second, Aoko's magic bullet scored a direct hit in the puppet's arm, reversing its trajectory and sending it crashing into the puppet's body with a violent explosion. Alright, please, that is what would have happened had the magic formula have been invoked. She barely avoided being struck once again. When her mage craft failed her, intuition took over and she just managed to get away.
やられた。最初のはそういうことか。
She clenched her teeth in frustration, her thoughts racing a mile a minute. Fight or flight? It only had one arm left, which would take time to retract. This was the best shot Aoko had at defeating it. If she could do it with the right arm just a fraction, she could get close enough to...
Vivo in sum, solitare putresque inferis. Ictius meus obitus dies, et meus nativus dies. Teobeam. Boy.
Why can you speak? October 11, there I rot alone. Today is the day I died and was born. I come to you. How much you don't? A crackle echoed through the corridor. The poetic murmurs contained enough magical energy for a mage to perceive. The verse itself was Latin, but it contained hints of the language of curses. Gander? Originally, they were words meant to curse a hated adversary. However...
Mea animae mortalis, otem eftura negata sunt. Manes sum, animam definire ambiguum est. Teodi et te am, conveniamus insomnio ipso.
The puppet was directing the words at itself. Curses beget curses. The victim calls down a curse on the assailant, creating a vicious cycle of negativity. The incantation was meant to do just that. However, this was ultimately a one-puppet show. An unprecedented source of power akin to utter intoxication. As unbelievable as it seemed, the cycle of curses had been turned into a perpetual motion device.
何それ、レベル高すぎじゃない。
Aoko abandoned the idea of digging her heels in. It was time to flee with all due haste.
何してんの、あんたも来る。
She grabbed Sojurou's hand and ran as fast as she could, deeper into the realm of bears. Yay! The crackling voice continued its murmuring behind them.
Proximi mich negligentes ferunt, omnes nos peccantes fims, et omnes nos edem fims, omnes nos peccatores sums. Venit domum meum, lut simile somnium, et pulvere simile quotidianum, corporebo. Te judico.
No. 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 Nah. No thanks. No. Aoko fought against the pain in her back as she ran through the mirrored corridor. She dragged Soujuurou by the hand.
青崎、傷は？
別に背骨がしびれてる程度よ。内臓は平気だし、出血もないみたい。
She cursed inwardly at how much of a mess she felt though. And like Soujuurou, Aoko did not run into any transparent walls. Thanks not to superior sight, but at her preparation she drew hammered the layout of the building into her memory.
平気ってわかるのか？
そりゃ自分の体だもの。身体管理は基礎中の基礎よ。
Aoko's matter-of-fact answer contrasted with Soujurou's nervous questioning. The corridor grew shorter with each and every left turn. At first, they were able to advance in a straight line for about 100 feet at a time. But by now, they were forced to turn a corner every 50 feet or so.
あいつはあの夜の。
多分ね、同じタイプだと思う。貴重なオートマタを惜しげもなく使い捨てるなんて、よっぽどお金持ちなんだろうけど。
Soujuurou furrowed his brows. He was grateful that she was answering his questions, but baffled by the strange words she was using.
青崎ストップ。もう随分走ったぞ。あいつは曲がり角一つ分向こうだ。少し休もう。
His words suggested that he was still concerned about her injuries. Aoko shook her head in irritation.
あの距離を狙ってくる相手に通路一つ分のリードは無意味よ。せめて二つ分に行くまで走るの。
I almost had a shadow of that thing being next to us. Soujuurou nodded. With that matter settled, he asked.
なんで俺を連れて行ってるんだ？
逃げられたくないからじゃない、バカ。
Answering curtly, Aoko glared at her naive prey. Good point. The two of them headed for the next corner. Their legs began to slow as they rounded one more. Aoko rubbed her back as she tried to catch her breath. Though Aoko had insisted that she was fine, it appeared to have been bravado. Even the usually clueless Soujuurou felt the desperation they were in. He stood behind Aoko with his arms folded. While they had a moment, he tried to make a sense of everything. First, Aoko had narrowly killed him. Though he was saved at the last possible second. It was by the strange, stretchy woman Aoko had burned to ashes 2 nights prior. He could barely make it out that night, but he considered it a her because it looked female. The woman's attack wounded Aoko's back and forced her to flee. Aoko had taken Soujuurou with her, claiming that the reason she did so was to prevent her prey from escaping. In other words,
青崎はまだ諦めてないんだな。
当たり前よ。あんなやつ仮に2体と半分始末してもあんた用の余力は残せるわ。
Get your ran. Her tone was sharp, but even Soujuurou could see that she was struggling to stay confident. The damage to her body was too much to afford her any optimism. Still, the fury in her eye refuses to accept her circumstances.
中がところどころショートしてる。あの右腕は回路を混戦させるジャミングってわけね。
Though the proper response would have been for her to tremble in fear, she did nothing but shake her fists in anger. The description of formula was only supposed to work on an absolute beginners. If it had been her roommate, her arm would have been repelled the instant it hit her, and the attacker's circuits burned out, rather than her own. Attempting to establish a link to the magic circuits of an Iron Mage was like presenting your heart on a silver platter. It would be of no use in a battle against a superior mage. And yet, her adversary had been designed to do just that. Coupled with the attacks in the areas of Biseki under Ako's jurisdiction these last few weeks, it was a clear statement from the enemy, who as of 2 days ago had revealed itself as a fellow mage. In other words, the puppet saw Aoko as no threat at all.
敵ながら正確な判断だこと。
While she was still angry, the whirlwind of emotions within her started to fade. Her face was that of a hunter far beyond her years.
なんか俺の時より真剣だな。
まあね、あんたの時は遊びが入ってたし。
Bullshit. Soujuurou was not sure whether to be happy or sad at that.
わからないことだらけで何を聞いていいかわからないんだけど、一つだけいいか。
Naoko didn't respond. Her eyes were focused on the darkness before them. The silence was heavy and the darkness was like a noose closing in on them. But Soujuurou continued in spite of her indifference.
青崎はあいつも殺すのか。
A silence fell over them. It was as if that gloom was pulling them in. No response. Their breathing was the only sound echoing into the dim corridor. There stood Soujuurou, forcing her to confront her sins, and the magician girl who continued to ignore him. They spent a few seconds seemingly frozen in time.
そう。それがあなたのキーワードみたいね。
Aoko whispered in a lifeless tone. Her sight was tinged with both resignation and contempt.
何？
独り言よ、忘れて。それと言っとくけど、あいつは人間じゃないわ。信じられないだろうけど、自分の意志で動く人形なの。この前のも今のやつもね。
Soujuurou nodded as he processed the information. Not only did he not doubt their story, but he seemed to have accepted it at face value.
なんか落ち着いてるわね、あなた。
まさかもう何が何だかわからないからあまり考えないことにしてるだけだ。ただ人形に関しては別にどうということはない。
もしかして他でも自動人形を見たことあるとか？
都会の人形ってああいうものじゃないのか？
She barely stopped herself from falling to her knees. Of course, how could she have forgotten? She was dealing with a bona fide, natural-born moron. As a student who just sprint from the isolation of the mountains like an endangered species, his utter lack of common sense rendered anything miraculous as mundane. If automobiles were moving conchs of metal, the moving puppets were nothing to write home about. Wait, that meant Tim, the incident from the other night hadn't been ordinary at all. He might have been assumed it was an everyday occurrence in the city.
参った。いっぺん頭の中覗いてみたいっていうか、ほんと、ここまで来ると感心するわ。調子が狂うのも当然だった。普通は私に襲われた時点でもっと違う反応をするはずなのに。化け物とか、お化けとかさ。でもあなたにとっては、そういうこともある、で済まされてたわけなんだ。なんかバカみたいね、私。
Her strained face returned to normal for a moment. It hit her. There had been another way to handle this without anyone getting hurt. But the damage had already been done. There were no do-overs in life, nor should there be. Their own mistaken assumptions had sent that situation spiraling out of control. But now that Soujuurou was involved, she had to make sure that her secret was safe with him. Even if there had been another better option, that ship had sailed. Human relationships were ultimately driven by mutual misunderstandings. Like tapestries woven from mismatched intentions.